everyone, Dark of All Trades here. Now one thing I really enjoy is explaining things. I've been told that I have a way of explaining things that makes it easy to understand from different thinkers. This is probably what makes me the teacher I am, and sets me apart from the non-teachers. I like to make things clear for everyone. This is probably a major factor that drives me to respond in the way I do to the content I do. I see a lot of apologists using vague language or twisting their words when they get called out for saying something. Since it seems that they deliberately use confusing language, I like to unravel their sentences, breaking them down so that everyone can evaluate them fairly and then see if the claims they make are worth believing. With that, for today, I'm going to take on another challenge. This one is from a channel called Think Catholic. The moment I saw this channel name, I immediately thought of something, which I made into a meme, which I plan to put at the wrap-up, and I'm almost ashamed of. I mean, I'm not, but I almost am. Anyway, TC's video is titled, What Atheists Can't Explain. Well, there are a lot of things that I, as an atheist, can't explain, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. If you ask, I would be happy to tell you a ton of things I can't explain, at least accurately, but chances are I could make something up to explain it. It doesn't mean it would be correct, but I'm sure there are some good examples here in this video that atheists like me can't explain accurately. So let's see what TCAT here has to say.
Only heaven silent for an answer.
You know what atheists can't explain? It's three things in one word. The first is that even though from the first to the 10th to the 1,000th time we hear a particular song, it's exactly the same, our experience of it is not the same. It becomes wearisome to us. Same thing happens with movies, and honestly the same thing can happen with people.
So I can see why he would think this would be difficult to explain. Neuroscience is a pretty complicated subject. But actually, science gives us several pretty clear explanations for why our experience of something like a song can change over time, even though the song itself does not change. First, let's talk about how our brains process novelty. When we hear a song we end up liking for the first time, our brain releases dopamine. That would be the feel-good chemical. Why? Because it's new and stimulating. But as we hear the same song again and again, that dopamine response diminishes. In fact, studies show that the brain's reward system responds less over time to repeated exposure to the same stimulus. In other words, the song becomes less exciting because the brain no longer sees it as something new and rewarding. This is a basic principle of how our brain reacts to novelty and change. This leads me into another key concept called habituation. Habituation happens when the brain becomes used to a stimulus, like a song after repeated exposure. The more often we hear it, the less our brain reacts. Over time, we experience that song as less emotionally impactful and sometimes even a bit dull. This happens with other stimuli too, movies, interactions with people, and much more. In between these sciencey articles that I'm referencing here, I want to give a plain, easier to understand answer. When you hear a song for the first time, your brain is actually physically different compared to after the 10th, 100th, or 1,000th time. Each time you experience a song, your brain is processing it in a slightly different context. You've had some experiences since the first time. Your neural pathways have adjusted, your memory has been updated, and depending on how much time has passed, you may have formed associations with the song tied to emotions, events, or even people you were with when you heard it. This means that even by that 100th time, you might be hearing that song weeks, months, or even years after the first time, and your brain is just not the same as it was before. Your experience physically and mentally has changed. Back to the more scholarly sources, another reason we get weary of repetition is related to attention and memory. On our first listen, our brain is focused on processing all the new details of the song, but after multiple exposures, it shifts to recalling memories of past experiences with that song. This makes the listening experience less engaging because we're no longer fully present in the moment. Our mind is bringing up familiar patterns instead of staying curious about the song itself. And there's something to be said about predictability. After hearing a song several times, we know what's coming next. Every beat, every note becomes predictable. The brain thrives on surprises, and when we no longer get those unexpected moments, our engagement decreases. Finally, there's emotional saturation, or what researchers call hedonic adaptation. This means that even if a song was emotionally impactful the first few times, over time that emotional reaction becomes weaker. Our brains can't sustain the same level of excitement or joy indefinitely because, for lack of a better term, it's designed to adapt to familiar experiences. So there are clear scientific explanations for why our experience of a song, movie, or interactions with people can become wearisome after repeated exposure. It isn't that atheists can't explain this. I would argue that most people can't explain this unless they have some hours in studying neuroscience and psychology. If you're interested in this idea, take some courses at your local state university. I only touch on the very surface, but we know that these sciences help us understand how our brains adapt and why the novelty wears off. Either atheist or theist could explain that with sufficient study and understanding. I wonder why he thinks that atheists couldn't explain what I just did. Oh well, he said he had two things in a word, so let's see what the second thing that atheists can't explain is.
It can't explain that we have an insatiable appetite, an appetite for the infinite.
Well, first of all, why did you use the pronoun it here? Are you switching from atheists can't explain to atheism can't explain? Because if you are, my answers are going to be different. Since it said on screen that this and the title is What Atheists Can't Explain, I'm going to respond as if he meant that atheists can't explain that we have an insatiable appetite, an appetite for the infinite. His point here is a bit unclear. I think he likely means that humans have a deep, continuous desire for knowledge, growth, or something more, perhaps understanding the universe and everything in it. Let me unpack this idea of an insatiable appetite and the desire to learn or explore more. It might seem mysterious at first glance. However, there are actually well-researched psychological and evolutionary explanations for why humans seek out more knowledge and experiences. From an evolutionary perspective, curiosity and the drive to learn have clear survival benefits. Early humans who were motivated to explore, solve problems, and adapt to new environments were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. In modern times, this drive manifests as a desire to learn, innovate, and improve ourselves. It's not so much an appetite for the infinite as it is a natural adaptive trait that helped humans thrive in changing environments. Humans who were motivated to explore and understand their environment had access to more information than those who were not. This meant they could find new food sources, craft better tools, or adapt to changing conditions more effectively. They were able to use their environment in ways that benefited themselves and their tribe, while those who lacked this drive might have struggled to survive or missed out on opportunities. This thirst for knowledge wasn't just about individual survival, it contributed to the overall success of groups. Those who learned more and shared the knowledge helped their tribes adapt, thrive, and outcompete others. As a result, this natural curiosity became a key trait passed down through generations. Even today, in our endeavors, whether it be at our job, in our families, even at war, as well as pretty much any area in our lives, having more and better information is often the difference between success and failure. Psychologically, humans experience something known as the seeking system, driven by dopamine, that feel-good chemical in the brain. This system motivates us to explore, learn, and engage with new experiences. It's not limited to atheists or theists, it's just part of how the human brain works. Research in neuroscience shows that curiosity activates reward pathways in the brain, which is why we feel satisfaction when we learn something new or achieve a goal. It's a continuous loop. Curiosity leads to learning, and learning reinforces our desire to know more. As for the idea of seeking something infinite, that seems to be more of a philosophical question. If he means that humans have a desire for a transcendent or infinite knowledge, then even atheists can recognize that human curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge does seem boundless. But we don't need to invoke anything supernatural to explain this. As I just went over, curiosity and learning are deeply embedded in our biology, and there are limits to what we can know, so it's less about infinite knowledge and more about the ongoing process of discovery. Some cognitive scientists suggest that humans evolved to be lifelong learners precisely because the world is complex, and constantly seeking new information helps us adapt. So this isn't something atheists can't explain, it's something well understood by both evolutionary theory and cognitive science. I would be happy to go deeper into any of these examples if there is interest. For now, I think he only has one word that atheists can't explain. Well, words are kind of my jammy jam, so let's see what he's got.
In one word, it can't explain boredom.
This was a very strange way to say this sentence. It almost sounds like he didn't actually write this, or he wrote it and didn't convey what he was thinking when he did. Just, and one word can't explain boredom. It almost comes across as if he's trying to say that atheists can't explain boredom in one word. He is very unclear with his delivery. I think he's saying that atheists can't explain one word, boredom, in a sense of why we experience boredom, but that's more than one word and doesn't sound as punchy. Enough of the critique of his delivery. Let me explain why he's just flat out wrong here. Boredom is actually one of the easier human experiences to explain, and it doesn't require any supernatural justification. It can be understood through well-established scientific principles, including what we've already touched on, the brain's reward system and its constant search for novelty. Boredom happens when the brain isn't getting the stimulation it craves. As I mentioned earlier, our brains release dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, when we experience something new or engaging. But when there's no novelty or challenge, the brain's reward pathways aren't activated in the same way. This is why people often feel restless or uninterested when doing something repetitive or unstimulating. From an evolutionary standpoint, boredom serves an important function. It's a signal that we're not being productive or learning anything useful from our environment. It pushes us to seek out new challenges, explore different ideas, or engage with the world in ways that could benefit our survival or well-being. If we didn't feel boredom, we might remain stuck in unproductive or even dangerous situations. In modern life, boredom has less to do with immediate survival, but it still drives us to seek novelty, creativity, and personal growth. When we experience boredom, it's our brain's way of telling us that the current activity isn't stimulating, and we need something more engaging. So it's not that atheists can't explain boredom. Boredom itself is a well-understood psychological phenomenon that fits perfectly within our understanding of how the brain works. I think that most lay people, and I would strongly bet this guy, have put in no time studying neuroscience, so they don't know the answer. And since he doesn't know the answer, then no one can know the answer. And that's it for his video. So what is ThinkCatman saying that atheists can't explain? Here they are on screen. Can you explain these things? Do you have different ideas than what I do here? Even if I were to grant that atheists cannot explain any of these, since he's clearly making a distinction between atheists and theists, is he implying that theists can explain these things in a way that atheists would be unable to use? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love to see the conversations, and I'm always impressed with how respectful you all are. Thank you for that. That's it for this one. So what do you think? Do you think that one Thinky Cathy boy really got us atheists with these ones? Or are you like me and you think that he needs to think Catholic think? Let me know in the comments below. If you were not experiencing boredom by my arguably too long explanations, show that by hitting that like button. Though for repeated insights, hit that subscribe button to receive new experiences from my channel. Speaking of experienced and insightful, I need to give an extra thanks to my patrons, Calaminous Anima, Sora, Long-Haired Lefty, Musical Ocelot, Ooga Booga Luga, Anonymous Netizen, Angel, Tarek Alkasab, Jammin' Kai Henningsen, and Triple Towel, who are the insatiable appetite that leads me to that sweet, sweet dopamine rush. If you would like to be one of the infinite, you can join them for as low as $1 a month at patreon.com/darkofoltrades. Though there is one thing I can't explain, and that is the feeling I get when you all are here, hanging out in the live chat, leaving your comments, hanging out in the Discord, supporting me on the YouTubes and the Patreon, and everything else you all do to show you appreciate what I do. As this channel grows, I see new names show up, and it's great to see all the newer fans interact with the ones that have been with me from the beginning. Thank you to all of you for helping everyone feel welcome and safe to share their ideas. That means more to me than anything else. And as always, keep learning.